which had some movie on.
I'm always thirsty. Interesting.
These monsters are pretty big. They're not difficult opponents for seasoned hunters, but they may be difficult for the new recruits. Miss Cha, how about you show them an example?
Sure.
Reliable as ever.
Get ready.
Watch out! I'll blast through!
Don't move. Penetrate. It's inescapable. Target located. This is the end. Light strike. A light breaking through the clouds.
Watch out!
Don't move. I won't let you get away. Target located. This is the end. You only get one chance.
Watch out! The storm is coming. As calculated. As careless.
It's time to freeze. I won't let you get away. Unavoidable. Target located. This is the end. Light strike. Faster.
I'll blast through!
Don't move. Rage on. Target located. This is the end. Faster. Back off. Penetrate. Missing opening. Storm. Penetrate. I'll freeze you. It's time to freeze. Penetrate. I won't let you get away. Target located. This is the end. You only get one chance. Back off. Penetrate. I won't let you get away. Penetrate. That won't work. Target located. This is the end. Faster. Sword of light.
Watch
Faster.
out! The storm is coming. Not much stronger.
Don't move. No.
Flower technique type 1. Falling progress.
Arranging my strength.
Too slow. This is the end. Red flower technique type 1. Falling progress.
I'll freeze you.
An opening.
Arranging my strength.
There's been a change in the atmosphere. Counterattack.
Arranging my strength.
Flash. Enough for the jobs. You're an unworthy opponent. I see it all. It's no use. There's been a change in the atmosphere.
Arranging my strength.
Too slow. I see it all. Flash. Time for a counterattack.
I'll freeze you.
I see an opening. This is the end.
Arranging my strength.
Time for a counterattack. Flash. I see it all.
Light strike.
Arranging my strength.
There's been a change in the atmosphere. A break. Explode. This is the end.
Arranging my strength.
I can't believe I made this kind of mistake.
They'll lock down, and no one will be able to get out of there since it's a rank escape. Most are skeptical of this so far, and can he make a couple comments? He started to answer that no problem. Granted, his magic alone wouldn't be enough to maintain a barrier of that power. However, he can absorb the magical energy of the objects around him, and to block the gate, he would need mana crystals to be placed all over Tokyo. He will simply activate the spell, after which the barrier will begin to absorb mana and become as path as a wall. By doing so, he will save everyone, and they should remember that. And this live broadcast was being watched from his office by the president of the association. Or was he? But he was afraid to imagine what would happen if he couldn't contain the Yes Rank 8. Suddenly, the association president turned to his ward and started asking him how Hunter Jean was doing, to which the latter replied that he was currently protecting a dungeon in the Soul area, and he held out a list of the dungeon to the association president that was available upon Ajin Gill's request. But he was afraid that there might be some disagreements with the White Tiger, Hunters, and Reapers guilds because of this. But it was hard for the president
just
of the
business as
association
usual.
to believe that a small guild consisting of just one person could become on par with the larger guilds. After all, it was so ridiculous
This
that
will
it
really
made
help me
one
grow.
want to cry.
Feel the wrath of Theus! You can't avoid it!
The president of the association realized that there should be no problem with that. Suddenly the assistant phone rang, and he asked the president of the association if he could step aside for a moment. But the president replied that he could go for
Red
2
flower
minutes
technique,
because he
type
had an
1.
abundance.
Throwing
So he
one
would go
boss.
shoot it. And as soon as he picked up the phone, it started telling him that they had received an urgent message from the race route and their presence was required. And if he remembers where the school where the Lord recently appeared is now, at first glance there's nothing much there. But they say that a double dungeon opened up in the nasty hall of that school, and also the Hunter Gene Wu went in there alone. Hunter Gene Wu was already in that dungeon, and he looked at the terrifying statue that started to rise, and 6 large stone wings appeared from it. He saw the large stone slab that had the wheel written on top of written on it, like the way that he did with that statue.
I'll please you.
Until that moment, he had turned to the hunter who had finally come to him. But Gene Wu saw the stone slab just split open, and he began to say that it seems that the rules that were inscribed on it originally had been changed. However, the creator began to answer him that it wasn't that simple at all. Now those rules really weren't needed, and Gene Wu began to ask the creator why he had told him. And the creator replied that that's exactly what it was. But the hunter was interested in the fact that whether he was a monster or
I'll
not.
please
The
you.
creator answered him that he had asked his question wrong.
You're an unworthy opponent.
As soon as he clapped his stone slab, all of a sudden, the stone began to move. Now, the final step would begin. If he could, he would learn everything. And that would be his parting gift. But Gene Wu the creator asked his stone slab to behave, but it wouldn't work. After all, they are in the that's been blocked. After all, this test is only
Explode. Explode.
I'll lend you my strength.
I'll please you.
Feel the wrath of Vader. Explode. Misses. Made a break. Explode.
I'll lend you my strength.
I'll please you.
You're an unworthy opponent.
then jumped away from the first guard.
You're an unworthy opponent.
Using the blades he had in his hand, he began to attack and stuck them into the back of that huge guard's head. But that wasn't all. The next guards who were standing nearby began to use their stone bows and shoot towards the hunter. But all their arrows were in vain as Gene Wu repelled them. Gene Wu saw a huge arrow piece flying in the air. He promptly propped up the arrow and catched it maximum force, deflecting it towards
Let's
the
do
archer.
it.
The arrow crashed into the archer's head with incredible force, tearing off a piece of his stone head. Gene Wu had been waiting for this moment as if he had only lived for this.
Let's try.
They started to see the creator who was watching couldn't believe that Gene Wu had reached this level of development. He realized that Gene Wu had actually become stronger.
This is the end. It's over.
They were strong, but he would be able to defeat them. The creatures floating in the air who watched the elements began to tell themselves that they could run. And suddenly, Gene Wu felt that the danger had increased. The largest stone statue in the room began to stand up, and the creator told him that it was time to chant God. A little later, a few hundred kilometers away from Gene Wu's battle was the creator and the Hunter Association. The association was
This is the end.
the latter began to put out a memorandum stating that they were giving up all the crystals from the island in favor of South. The president of the association did not fully understand why they wanted to do this. But the president of the Japan Association began to hope that they would make the fire Hunter Gene in return.
I'll shred you.
A smile appeared on the association president's face, and he replied to him that unfortunately the
I'll please you.
association
I'll lend you my strength.
After all, he just wanted to help. But the president of the association thought about it. chairman couldn't believe that the president was the child.
You're an unworthy opponent. Red flower technique type 1. Crawling blood loss. I'll shred you! Feel the wrath of Theta!
I'll freeze you.
I'll lend you my strength.
Explode!
Way to try a new game. Where is it? Keep the game.
Break.
I'll lend you my strength.
I see it. An opening. This is the end. Red flower technique type 1. Crawling blood loss. It was a good fight.
Now they are not easy to manage, and the naked blades are now on the verge of collapse. And the rest of the guilds are busy mopping up the gates and must be having a hard time. If monsters get out of that gate that opened in the middle of Tokyo, then all the responsibility will fall on the chairman's shoulders. The president of the association began to tell him that apparently Gato Ruji was an outstanding hunter of their country. Although he didn't agree to this raid because of the best of intentions, it was their fault for taking Gato away from the naked blades. The chairman is responsible for splitting up the guilds and now not being able to control them. And he alone is responsible for trying to cheat back then. The chairman saw that the president of the association had placed a black box on the table that wasn't a real black box, the same one that was in the gear used by Fuji's team. At this point, he started to get very angry and told the chairman that since they thought he wouldn't find out about it. The chairman saw the atmosphere heating up and the president of the association was very, very angry. He continued to talk about what to do
Well
without
then,
even mentioning
shall
the
we?
principals. We are talking about ordinary citizens. If they thought about what would become of them if these recordings were made public, the president, because he was very angry, broke the transmitter and the table.
Time for a counterattack. It's no use.
I'll lend you my strength.
Flash.
There was no end to that.
Take a break.
Behind him that was larger than all the previous ones. He realized that he wouldn't be able to dodge.
I'll lend you my strength.
As the statues that were began to rise into the air thanks to this technique.
This is the end.
Shoot out its eyes. Those statues that were in the air melted
Damn
the
it.
force of this powerful attack. The notification system showed that his ruler's touch skill had reached its maximum level, and the ruler's power skill was now available to him. Well, the attack and the big statue kept getting stronger and stronger, and those stats simply melted, and their powerful attack flew near the hunter Jinwoo, who managed to dodge. He realized that it was very dangerous. And if he was hit by such an attack, no skills will help him here, and he realized that first he had to deal with the big guy who shoots Jinwoo, started to use the sprint skill, and jumped into the air to get to that big statue, but it didn't stand still and started to lift its big foot to slam Jinwoo, and as soon as there was a loud sound of that big foot slamming into the ground, the statue started to smile because it realized that she realized that she had finally killed the hunter, but suddenly she started to notice that her feet were moving with a bright light in the other direction. After a powerful impact, where there was smoke, Jinwoo began to appear, moving higher and higher with all his speed. He ran towards the statue, heading towards its head, and realized that it was attacking again with its large and powerful eyes. However, at this moment, Jinwoo began to combine sprint and lord power to get into the blind spot. And when the statue had already started firing its lasers, it was in the blind spot. Although the last strike wasn't delivered, Jinwoo realized that it was incredible as it almost didn't touch the statue. However, the effective the result would have been even more impressive. Suddenly, the statue noticed the hunter standing on its shoulder.
Don't move. I won't let you get away.
time. Enemy located.
Target located. This is the end. Light strike. This was intended. You only get one chance.
was unwilling to stop.
Don't move.
Naturally, the correct methods were useful.
It's time to freeze. Penetrate.
First time.
Decided that he should now
Dodge.
if you can.
Enemy located. Be careful of the typhoon.
This is the end. Faster. Powerful attacking.
And asked him who he was.
Successful prediction. A light breaking through. Don't move. Rage on. Unavoidable.
First time. Enemy located. You're my target.
Target located. This is the end. Let's strike. You only get one chance. Powerful attacking. Don't move. It's time to freeze. It's inescapable. Penetrate.
First time.
If you can.
You're my target. Enemy located.
Target located. This is the end. Stronger. Light strike. Powerful attacking coming.
He was told that
Sword of light. Don't move. Rage on.
First time. Slow down.
Frick. Damn it.
flying right in front of him, the monster creator instantly turned its wings into 6 arms. Gene Wu watched him. However, in the same second, he did not notice the creator disappeared from his sight and then suddenly attacked Gene Wu. He was so Gene Wu crashed into the wall behind him, and the blow was so strong that he began to bleed. However, it didn't take long for the creator to get hurt and continue to attack. But Gene Wu was already prepared for it and began to dodge his
A light. Don't move. Penetrate.
First time. Wait. Slow down.
began to smile at him.
You're my target.
This is the end. Faster. Don't move. Storm. It's inescapable. Penetrate.
Dodge.
If you can!
Light strike. Faster. You only get one chance.
What was going on with his world? But the creator started to run towards the hunter who
Don't
said
move.
that if he wanted to get answers to the question so much, and if he was afraid that by killing him he wouldn't be able to get to the truth, Gene Wu realized that he couldn't defeat him at such a short distance, and he began to run to the side. At this moment, the Lord, the creator, realized that he was going to attack him from afar. And as soon as the explosion sounded, Gene Wu realized that he could use the same skills as him. Then there was no point in this plan. But the creator started to say that it didn't matter whether he would kill him or not, because his answer was already predetermined from the moment he was it? He had created this system, and how was he able to attain such power?
Stronger.
But the Creator answered him that he wasn't the one who chose him, for he didn't like him at all back then.
Don't move.
He had only created and started the system to develop the player.
Rage
Gene
on.
looked at the timer and realized that he had almost no time left now. And the Creator was already in the air at this moment and began to say that until the timer counted down the last few minutes until his death, he would fight him at full strength. And as soon as the Creator began to strike with the items he had picked up, Gene felt something and eventually realized that he could feel again, and now he was fascinated. After all, the sword, spear, blade, axe, and hammer, he can feel them.
Time to breathe.
He feels their every move, and the Creator couldn't believe that he dodged despite the fact that he
Inescapable.
was hitting with all his might.
Penetrate.
Yes, it also accelerated at such a speed that he didn't notice it at all. And as soon as Gene cut off his stone head, the Creator realized that even though it was a big body, he could still feel the pain. And of course, he eventually realized that this was the reason why he was chosen, and the Creator started frantically screaming that he was very human, and that was utter innocence. And at this point, it is already 3 minutes and 45 seconds.
I won't let you get away.
Toward Stacy Smith with
can't believe I
$10,000.
failed.
On the timer, at which point all the statues that were on the ground started to rise. But Gene didn't stop stopping, because he wanted to make it before the timer ran out and he could defeat him. Right now, there was one big statue and a bunch of small ones in front of him, and at the head of them was the Creator, Gene Wu. He jumped into the air and activated his Lord Power skill. At that moment, he struck the ground with force, causing all the guards to scatter in different directions. Gene ran towards the Creator and came close, starting to attack him. Little by little, he cut off the Creator's but suddenly, something hit his shoulder hard. And as soon as he turned around, he saw a large guardian with a great stone shield in front of him, and he realized that it was once again the creep that had once attacked him. But the timer was still running, and Gene didn't want to stop. He jumped up and struck it in the head with all his strength, causing the stone guardian's head to split apart. There were about 2 minutes left to finish, but Gene didn't give up and continued to cut off the stone Creator's arms. Eventually, he was able to pin him to the ground, and the Creator told him that he had lost. The Creator started to say that all the answers he wanted to know were stored inside him. But Gene didn't understand what he meant. However, the Creator continued to say that now the choice was only his, and a notification appeared in front of him that the data collection process had been completed. He needed to accept or reject the information he wanted. Gene thought about the fact that all the information he so desired was right in front of him right now, and he replied that he was accepting. And at that moment, a bright light appeared, and all the data was successfully transferred. And Gene found himself in some strange place. He was floating in the sky like a spirit and watched as many different monsters walked in one direction. He couldn't believe his eyes, because there were so many demons and monsters below him, and they all started to raise their heads and look up. Gene thought that they were all looking at him, but as soon as he himself looked up, he saw a huge gate in front of him that started to open in different places. It was crowded with monsters, and suddenly he realized that this was Earth. Ice elves, high orcs, and goblins, if they all made it out of the dungeons, humanity would be finished. However, their enemy was far above the humans, and things were finally coming to a head. Now he knew exactly what awaited them, and it was a bloody war, and to defeat the enemy in the form of silver warriors and monsters, decided to unite among themselves. Thus began a bloody battle, accompanied by the incessant clanging of metal against metal, and the spells that once flew out of their mouths were replaced by furious screams. Moreover, the ground was turning scarlet in color, and without a doubt the silver warriors were strong. But when it already seemed like all the monsters were about to disappear, the Heaven's messengers who had previously headed towards their enemy suddenly began to retreat. Gene noticed someone in black robes begin to speak for all the dead to rise, and he realized that it was the Monarch Lord. Mistakes that came out of nowhere summoned shadows. Gene realized that that warrior in black armor was a Shadow Lord. He was sitting on his mighty horse, and he had an immortal army. Now the monsters had no fear of death, and surrounded by darkness, they were building up their power. While the blood in their veins only grew thicker and blacker, there was no end or end to them. Compared to this countless army, his army seemed insignificant, thought Gene Wu. And the monsters that had just fallen were once again coming back to life to fight the Silver Warriors with renewed vigor. An incredible battle between light and darkness unfolded, such that the earth itself trembled under the power of these two elements. Gradually, the fading flames of war flared up with renewed vigor, and there was only one creature who could change the outcome of the battle. Jin Wu, who was watching all of this from on high, saw the true strength of the Lord. After all, the Shadow Soldiers were unrelenting in destroying the Silver Warriors, gradually turning them into his companions. Wherever the Lord stepped foot, a veritable storm would pass, and the victory of the monsters meant the victory of the Lord. That was until they appeared. But at the same time, the hunter from the association who had entered the double dungeon to help Hunter Jinwoo was standing in front of the door. The inspector from the association asked one of the hunters if he could open those doors. But that hunter looked at them and felt a powerful magic. He began to ask the inspector that indeed Jinwoo was behind those gates. But the inspector answered him that it was confirmed information. Huntress Cha watched and realized that that magic did not belong to Jinwoo. She wondered who possessed it. After all, she never thought that she would ever see it. But no matter what, she wants to help Hunter Jinwoo. After all, that time he said he couldn't clear the double dungeon, and the inspector was wondering why he came here again, and he was sure it was for a reason. But once the door started to open, none of the hunters saw what the hell was going on inside. The inspector saw those statues and the deity and realized that they really existed. But suddenly at that moment the creator began to address them and ask how they were here, for he did not remember calling people. And it was an unexpected encounter for him. The hunters who saw this monster could not believe that it could talk and knew their language, but the creator began to tell the hunters to be quiet, or if they made so much noise, they would wake up the king. Suddenly, the hunters saw Jin was standing in one place and somehow strangely lit up. They couldn't understand what was happening to him, but at the same moment, the 4 hunters died at the hands of the creator. And as soon as the creator had dealt with them, he began to say that he would not take weaklings. He wanted only the strong, though even those would not be enough as a sacrifice for the king. Jinwoo was currently in a trance as he watched the Dark King fight against the monsters that came out of the Red Gate. Their numbers were countless and stretched for several hundred kilometers. After these monsters, terrifying creatures began to come out, one of which was very large and had white coloring. All of the monster troops looked into the eyes of the Dark King, who was standing with his army, and they were already ready to fight. At the same time, while Jinwoo was watching this inside the room where he was in a trance, the hunters who went in there were fighting with the large statues. Some of the hunters were severely injured and needed treatment. One of the hunters started shouting to his comrades to strengthen their defenses as much as possible, as the enemies were already advancing. The creator standing in front of them began to address them and ask who would be able to come forward after the battle with his puppets. He would grant the rarest opportunity to witness the birth of a king if anyone survived such an ordeal. One of the hunters began shouting for the others to retreat, as the largest guardian was ready to fire his lasers. He fired his lasers at the hunters. There was a huge explosion, and the laser began to vaporize everything in the room. But the hunters started to bounce back, thus attacking back. One of the hunters began to use his magic and shot back at that large guardian. While one of the hunters was distracting the god, he ordered the other hunters to deal with the smaller guards who began to surround them. At that moment, an inspector from the Hunter Association flew towards one of the guards and, after gaining strength, struck him on his large helmet in one powerful blow. He thought he was going to kill the guard, but suddenly realized that he hadn't even injured him, as the guard was stronger than he thought. The hunters realized that these guards were unusual defenses, and everyone should be on guard. After all, not even magic works on them, and they are likely susceptible to it. The huntress' provocation also had no effect on them. They didn't even move even a millimeter after the numerous attacks made by the hunters. One of the hunters began to wonder if there was any way to defeat these creatures. Suddenly, he noticed Jin was standing off to the side and decided that he should wake him up since he might be in a trance right now. The hunter launched one of the fireballs at him, and it didn't matter to him whether it hit him or not. The most important thing was to wake him up, for it was the last chance they had at the moment to survive. However, as the orb came closer and closer to the hunter Jinwoo, the hunter noticed that his orb was about to be repelled by the creator, who rushed over with incredible speed. And as soon as he reflected the orb, he began to fly with voice towards the hunter, shouting at him how dare he disturb the king's sleep. But suddenly the hunter was saved by his companions, who the 3 of them began to attack back at the creator. And at that moment, one of the hunters started shouting Hunter Cha for her to wake up Hunter Jinwoo as soon as possible while they distract the creator. She realized this and started running to the side to get as close to Hunter Jinwoo as quickly as possible. And just as she almost reached her goal, we are shown that Jinwoo is now in another world and watching numerous monsters fight against the Shadow Monster and the King of Darkness. It was an incredible sight for him, as so many had already fallen, but he continued to replenish his army, and if it were him, he would have exhausted all of his mana long ago. But there was no end to this power, and the different sides of the barricade were now fighting against one common enemy, the Shadow Soldiers. After all, if this battle was only between monsters and Silver Warriors, then the latter would certainly not have to fight the Shadow Army. As it was, the Shadow Warriors were fighting against the monsters, which meant that there was an internal conflict. And once the battle was over, the last of the monsters who was in charge of them had left, and the King of Darkness was approaching them saying that they were finally able to end this war. He began to ask him why he had betrayed him, but that monster replied that it was a great pity since he wanted to kill him so badly. However, the King of Darkness asked again why he craved it, and that monster began to laugh furiously and speak in some incomprehensible language. But the King of Darkness, without thinking for a long time, took him by the neck and began to lift him into the air. And the King of Darkness of Europe finished him off. But suddenly he saw that look in Jinwoo, who was now in the place of the King of Darkness, started to take the helmet off that monster and realized that it was the Demon King Baron. She was wondering what he was doing here. Suddenly, Jinwoo looked at her hands, which were stained with the monster's blood. Suddenly, he didn't realize what was happening. After all, he hadn't noticed it before. One of his hands began to touch his chest, and he realized that he currently had two hearts, one human and the other dark. It's a trap.
Be aware of what we're dealing with. He's going to try to use chaos to get by us.